Intimate Partner Violence and Sexual Assault in Native American Communities by Stephanie Lobb and Lenora Olson, Taylor Jimenez,
and Rebecca Monroe.
The summary. Initiative partner violence and sexual assault against women are pervasive occurrences in the United States. Native American women experience the highest rate of violence than any other ethnic or racial group in the United States. Substantive issues that oppress violence in the lives of Native Americans. Interventions. Research. Nearly 25% of surveyed women and 7.5% of surveyed men said that they were raped or physically assaulted by a current or former spouse, cohabitating partner, or dated at some time in their lifetime. For instance, the NVAWS found that American Indian women were significantly more likely to disclose rape and physical assault victimization compared to women of other racial backgrounds. Almost 65% of American Indian women surveyed at NVAWS reported experiencing rape or physical violence compared to 55% of the total NVAWS sample. Greenfield and Smith reported that the average annual violence crime rate among the American Indian women was 124 per 1,000 persons, which translates to approximately one violent crime for every 20 residents. This rate of violent victimization is about 2 times that experienced by African Americans and whites and 4.2 times that experienced by Asian Americans. From 1993 to 1998, the average annual rate of rape or sexual assault for American Indians, 5.8 per 1,000, was significantly higher than any rate for Asian Americans, whites, or African Americans. Native Americans had limited programs and interventions and documentation evaluation. The community-based intervention served individuals, groups at the local and regional state levels. Many of these projects stem from grassroots efforts including shelters for battered women and children, crisis hotline, and support groups. The first shelter on an Indian reservation was opened in 1977. Healthcare interventions. Many of the healthcare settings interventions are designed to educate and support healthcare professionals to identify the occurrence of IPV and sexual assault in the lives of their patients. Unlike community-based interventions, healthcare settings typically do not engage in remediation. Federal and national organizations tend to create and provide interventions and services that address micro issues, including sexism, institutionalized oppression, intersections, belief, individual and state violence, and federal and tribe policing concerning IPV and sexual assault. You can also see on the PowerPoint that each agency has their own table, but we decided to include the federal and national organization table on there. The Table 3 has the addresses of the agencies, and these places are for the Native American people.
There were not very many methods used in this article. However, there were many surveys conducted to receive these statistics. Intimate partner violence and sexual assault against women are pervasive occurrences in the United States. The National Institute of Justice conducted a survey that portrays the percentages of women and men that have been raped or physically assaulted by an intimate partner. The NVAS used a modified version of the conflict tactics scale to inquire about physical assault and found that American Indian women reported higher rates of physical assault than another race or ethnic groups. The NVAWS reported that American Indians experience violent victimization at a rate greater than other U.S. racial groups. And to prove this, they used a definition of rape that included forced vaginal, oral, and anal sex to conduct the survey. The National Institute of Justice surveyed that nearly 25% of surveyed women and 7.5% of surveyed men said they were raped and or physically assaulted by a current or former spouse, cohabitating partner, or date at some time in their life. The percentage breaks down to approximately 1.5 million women and 835,732 men. In addition, it was reported that rates of IPV vary significantly among women of diverse racial backgrounds. In particular, studies show that Native American women experience the highest rate of violence of any ethnic or racial group in the United States. The NBAWS findings are consistent with other findings of IPV in Native American communities, exploring one-year prevalence rates of violence in marriage found that 15.5% of Indian couples reported violence within marriage, and 7.2% reported severe violence. The same study was conducted for white people at 14.8% and only 5.3% being severe. By using a specific definition of rape, the NBAWS found that 34% of American Indian women reported a completed or attempted rape at some point in their lives, compared to 6.8% of Asian American, 18.8% of African American women, and 17.7% of white women. There are a lot of barriers to services for Native Americans. More than 70% of sexual assaults are not reported due to mistrust of white agencies and helpers, fear of being ostracized by families, shame and guilt. Concerns with confidentiality and jurisdictional confusion have also been noted as factors informing the low rates of reporting. Jurisdictional confusion caused by multiple realities of tribal political sovereignty and 200 years of tribal U.S. government contact challenges victims' abilities to attain legal recourse that is accessible, fair, and timely. Low levels of reporting may contribute to feelings of isolation and helplessness among victims, as well as send a message to perpetrators that even if they are caught and arrested, prosecution may not occur because of the gaps caused by jurisdictional confusions. There are implications that can be set in place for this practice, policy, and research. Adapt macro interventions that will support the rebuilding of institutions in Native American communities. Provide employment and training opportunities. Utilize interventions that support self-determination, empowerment, and pride. Recruit sample from more diverse settings, including reservations, urban areas, cultural centers, educational institutions, and various social service venues. Research on the prevalence of IPV and sexual assault shows that Native Americans experience higher rates of IPV and sexual assault than do non-Native Americans. Future research should explore how much of the differences in IPV reported across different racial and ethnic groups has to do with demographic, social, and environmental factors.